Good morning, Algebra 2. Today we are going to start with a problem. We are going to do 546 divided by 5. And you're not going to use your calculators for this. And I want an exact remainder in fraction form. Okay, so this is long division. So the first thing I need to do is I need to take this number 5 and see what I need to multiply it by to equal 5. So 5 times 1 equals 5. Now I'm going to take this 1, I'm going to multiply it by this 5 here, and I get 5. And now I subtract those numbers. Okay, so 5 take away 5 is 0, and I bring down my next number, 4. So now 5 times what gives me 4? Well, that doesn't work. Okay. So that's going to be a 0. So now I'm going to do 0 times 5 equals 0. I'm going to subtract those two numbers and I get a 4. Now I'm going to bring down my next number, which is 6. So 5 times what gives me 46? Well, it's 5 times, let's write this in blue so it matches. 5 times 9. So now I'm going to go on ahead and multiply that 9 times that 5, and I get 45. I subtract those two numbers, and I get 1. So my remainder is 1. That's how you learned it in like the 4th and 5th grade, or you should have. But really what we have is 109 and 1/5. Okay, we write it over what we divided by. So that's our answer. That's going to be very important because there are a lot of things in calculus that you have to use long division for. So in 3.4a, we're doing long division of polynomials. Okay, so you see these problems are set up like the problems you're used to seeing, but they're just a little different. So let's go on ahead and let's get into some long division here. We're going to do it the exact same way. So when I'm dividing and I'm finding out what I have to multiply by, I'm only looking at this first term here. Okay? So my x. What do I need to multiply x by to get 4x to the third? Well, I have to have 2 more x's, so it's going to have to be an x squared, and that's going to have to be a 4, okay, that I multiply by. And I'm just lining up my x squareds over my x squareds. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did on my example long division problem. I'm going to take this 4x squared, and I'm going to multiply it by x minus 2. Okay, so I'm multiplying it by what I'm dividing by here. So I get 4x to the third minus 4 times 2 is 8x squared. Now, the important thing here is these two should always match up, at least until the very end, unless I'm left with a remainder, and then they won't match up. So now the other important thing, I have to subtract this entire thing, which means I have to distribute a negative sign to both of those. So these are going to cancel. And now I have 2x squared minus negative 8x squared. So that becomes a plus, which is 10x squared. And then I'm going to bring down my minus 3x, just like in our example. Okay, now I'm going to start all over again. X times what gives me 10x squared? Well, that's going to be x times x to get that x squared, and x times positive 10 to get that 10. And now I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to take that 10x that I just wrote there, and I'm going to multiply it by x minus 2. So 10 times 10x times x is going to be 10, if I can write, 10x squared. And 10x times negative 2 is negative 20x. But now I have to subtract this whole thing. So I'm going to distribute that negative sign to both of those. So that's going to cancel. And that's going to become a plus, which gives me 17x. And then I'm going to bring down my 10. Now I'm going to start all over again. So x times what gives me 17x. So x times 17 gives me 17x. Now I'm going to take this 17 and I'm going to multiply it by what I'm dividing by. So 17 times x is 17x. And 17 times -2 is -34. Now I'm going to subtract that entire thing. So I have to distribute that minus sign. So that becomes a 0, and 10 plus 34 is 44. So that's a remainder of 44. Okay. That's not how we leave it. Let's not leave it written like a remainder. Okay, we want it as a fraction. So now my answer when I divide is 4x squared plus 10x plus 17 plus, because that's a positive 44 over what I was dividing by. And that's my answer. Let's go on ahead and try this second problem here. Okay, so I'm going to start out the same way. I'm only going to look at this 3x here. And 3x times what gives me 15x squared? Well, x times x will give me an x squared. And 3 times 5 will give me a 15. So that's going to be 5x. So now I'm going to take that 5x and I'm going to multiply it by this entire 3x plus 1. So I get 15x squared plus 5x. But now I have to subtract that entire thing. So I have to distribute that minus sign. So that's going to be a 0, and that's going to be 8 minus 5x, which is 3x, and then bring down my minus 12. And now I start all over again. 3x times what gives me 3x? Well, it's times 1. So I'm going to add a positive 1 there. Now I'm going to take that 1, and I'm going to multiply it by 3x plus 1. And I get 3x plus 1. Now I'm going to subtract that entire 3x plus 1. So distribute those signs. 3x, take away 3x is 0. -12 minus 1 is -13. So my remainder is -13. So now to write my answer completely, too many pens to choose from, it's going to be 5x plus 1. That's a -13. So I'm going to go on ahead and put minus 13 over my 3x plus 1. Let's go on ahead and take a look at these next two problems here. So these ones are written a little different first off, and they are a little different just in the way that we're going to divide. So I'm going to rewrite this problem as a division problem. So I'm dividing by 3x squared plus 6x. And I have 6x to the 4th plus 12x squared plus 9. So let's go on ahead, and I'm going to look at just this problem, this one right here. So 3x squared, so x squared, I have to multiply by an x squared. 3 times 2 gives me 6. So now I'm going to multiply 2x squared times that 3x squared plus 6x. And now I get 2x squared times 3x squared is 6x to the 4th. And 2 times 6 is 12x to the 3rd. Okay. Now, there's a problem here. Okay. There's a squared and there's a third. So it's okay for you not to put anything in here if these are missing terms. But if you do put them in, okay, so if you do put a 0x to the 3rd for a placeholder, and then you do your other terms, then if you have something like this pop up, then you're easily able to combine those like terms. Whereas otherwise, you have to remember not to combine it with your squared. So I would highly recommend doing that. Okay. And when we teach you another division method, you're going to have to do that. So I would just get in the habit of doing that anyways. Okay, so now let's take a look, because now I can subtract this whole thing and I have like terms to combine. Okay. So 0x to the 3rd minus 12x to the 3rd is negative 12x to the 3rd. And I'm going to bring down my plus 12x squared. So now x squared times what gives me an x to the 3rd? Well, that's an x. And 3 times what gives me negative 12? Well, that's going to be a negative 4. So now I'm going to take this negative 4x and I'm going to multiply it by 3x squared plus 6x. And I get negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. X times x squared is x to the 3rd. Negative 4 times 6 is negative 24. X times x is x squared. I'm going to subtract that whole thing. So that's going to change both of these signs. That goes away. 12 plus 24 is 36x squared. And now I can bring down my 0x. So I'm going to start all over again. So 3x squared times what gives me 36x squared? So 3 times 12 and x squared I don't need, so it's just going to be a 12 there. So now I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to do my multiplication. So 12 times 3x squared plus 6x. And that's going to give me 36x squared plus 12 times 6x, which is 72x. And I'm going to subtract that whole thing. So I got to distribute that negative sign. One of the biggest mistakes I see is forgetting to distribute those negative signs. So that's going to cancel, and I'm left with negative 72x, and bring down my 9. Now I would look to start all over again. 3x squared times what gives me an x? Well, since this x term degree is smaller than that one, I'm done with my division. And this is my remainder. So my answer then is going to be my 2x squared minus 4x plus 12 minus, or I'm going to go ahead and do a plus here, negative 72x plus 9. Okay, up here I did a minus, and that's because it was only one number, but here, because it's multiple numbers, I need to make sure that I do a plus and then my signs. Otherwise, that negative sign would distribute to everything. And it's over my 3x squared plus 6x. So that is my answer on that problem. Let's go on ahead and try one more problem here. So I've already got all my terms, so I'm going to go on ahead and write this problem out. X squared minus 4x plus 3 And I have x to the third minus 6x squared plus 11x minus 6. So let's go on ahead and do our division. First thing I'm going to see, what do I need to multiply this? Only this first term is all I'm looking at. What do I need to multiply it by to get an x to the third? And I need to multiply it by an x. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to rewrite my problem just to do my multiplication. So x squared minus 4x plus 3. So that gives me an x to the third. X times negative 4x is negative 4x squared. And x times 3 is 3x. I'm subtracting that whole thing, so I have to change all of my signs. So this sign becomes a plus. This sign becomes a minus. So those cancel. Negative 6 plus 4, negative 6x squared plus 4x squared is negative 2x squared. 11x minus 3x is 8x. And then I'm going to bring down my negative 6. So now I'm going to start all over again. What do I need to multiply x squared by to get negative 2x squared? I need to multiply by negative 2. And now I'm going to take that negative 2 and I'm going to multiply it by x squared minus 4x plus 3. And I get negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 6. I need to subtract that entire polynomial. I'm going to change all my signs. So that becomes a plus, a minus, and a plus. So now I'm going to have those two are going to cancel. Negative 8x and my negative 8x is negative 16x. And negative 6 plus 6 is 0. And now I am done. My remainder is negative 16x. So I'm going to go on ahead and write my answer. So that's going to be x minus 2 plus negative 16x over x squared minus 4x plus 3. And that is it. You guys need a lot of practice with this because this definitely is not an easy concept, especially if you don't remember basic long division. So have a great day. And once again, be sure to ask questions if you have them.